Today we're here with Rodolphe Simonetti, who is an expert in the information and security space. He's recently joined JIBB as an investor and advisor. So, Rodolphe, can you please introduce yourself? What
Yes, thank you.
what is your wealth of experience?
Hi, Connor. Thank you for having me. As you said, I'm an information security executive. I've been working on that field for the last 25 years, mostly for large enterprise. So I did spend some time with Verizon and with Amazon, working mostly on governance, risk, and compliance, managing risk audits, and so on for large corporation and complex environment, as well as the customers of those large corporations. And I have been managing like a large and small team in a complex environment. And another part of my experience is I have been an advisor to some startups as well. And this is how I got introduced to JIBB. So Masood contacted me on LinkedIn. We had a good discussion. One first, I was wondering about the product. I thought, oh, this is interesting, but maybe I have seen that in the past. And he did a demo that did wow me. I was like, oh wow, no, this is this. It sounds like something basic, but those guys they are managing that in a very efficient way. And I was not even thinking about security. I was thinking about, oh, this is something I could use on a daily basis for management meeting, regardless of the topic. As we are moving to a world where we are not fully at the office, not fully remote, and so on, this hybrid environment requires some specific solution. And so far, I have never seen a solution for this hybrid participation, share of document, and in fact, using some notes from meeting and so on, in transforming that into a leverageable outcome. I have never seen something that was as quick and efficient as JIBB. So after my first discussion with Masood, we had a few follow-up and we connected well. Of course, like many of those solutions, there are some specific security requirement, request, expectation from customers, regulators, and so on. So we did connect on that, and it was a great discussion. And I guess it did give both of us the idea to collaborate.
What inspired you to join JIBB?
What inspired me is the combination of one, the solution, because the live demo was extremely good. And I was like, as I told you earlier, I was like, I think I have seen that in the past, but I have never seen that working so fast, so well, and so smoothly, being integrated, not requiring additional hardware, software, and so on, beyond what is already used for collaboration within our enterprise. And the other thing is, I guess the personality of Masood and the way he was able to convey the message, because you can have a great product, but you need to have a great message and a great vision that goes with that. And I was positively surprised to see the great combination of both.
Thank you. What was your initial thoughts on JIBB?
So my thought is we need something on top of the existing collaboration environment, and there are so many of those. Like between what we are using right now, tools that allow people to have meeting. You can think about Microsoft Teams, Zoom, WebEx, whatever, and the extension of that with. In fact, people who are working from home, people who are working from the office, and the collaboration that is often difficult. I think we all have meeting where there are 3 people in the room at the office, and 4 people working remotely from either the other side of the city or the other side of the world. And what's going on this whiteboard, it's super important because that's brainstorming and so on. So what I did like with the presentation of the solution is the opportunity for someone who is remote to interact with what is happening on the whiteboard, and having both being merged on the screen. This level of collaboration is great. But also the second thing that is very important, I think we have all experienced all of those meetings where, in fact, you have a great whiteboarding session, and halfway or at the end of the session, someone takes a phone and take a few photos and so on. And the reality is no one is never using that after those photos have been taken, or people just double check, take notes, and so on. The efficiency and the speed that what is the brain dump that is on the screen is turned into actionable content, list of action, email, flowchart, PowerPoint document and so on, it's great. It's like it's not only a productivity improvement, it's an opportunity not to drop the ball. So many of those things you put on a whiteboard are a great idea. How many of them make it to the digital environment and become real actionable item? I think we are losing a lot in that process. And this JIBB solution is the opportunity not to lose anything between the brainstorming session and the actionable outcome.
Yeah, on that, what aspect of JIBB's technology excites you the most?
What I like about JIBB technology and what I'm looking for in technology in general is for those technology to be like a smooth and integrated in other items. I think what we all want to avoid is to have 23 appliances, 47 apps, and so on. The fact that it's so easily integrated with a solution like Cisco and so on, it's making it easier to consume. I guess if I take an example of something totally different, I think we're all tired of having to switch between 4, 5, 6, 7 different subscriptions when we watch TV, between Hulu, Netflix, and so on. I think the more we can consume through less channels, the better. So being able to use existing marketplace from Cisco, Microsoft Office 365 or whatever, I think it's a smart way to do it because you are able to leverage additional option content and so on without having to manage some additional painful technology you have to implement and so on. So seamless implementation is, I think, what is the best part of this technical solution.
Yeah. In regards to like the trends in the world and challenges that workers are facing, how does JIBB align with that? And how do you see workers in this new age of AI using an application like JIBB?
Well, I think there are two things that are happening right now. This move to AI, of course, where in fact the lowest added value job are being fully automated. So I think we are going to see some changes in the way we operate. If I think about the way many companies are subcontracting business to other places of the world and so on, everything that is simple because it's cheap, well, it's becoming even cheaper. So when you have people managing a spreadsheet on the other side of the world for you, now you can do that using AI. So you can reduce the cost even further. So that's a great opportunity and that's a trend. But the other trend is, and I think it surprised many people over the last couple of years, is we went from a workforce that was mostly working from the office to a workforce that was mostly working from home because of what happened with COVID. And then it became hybrid, but hybrid with still a strong focus on remote working from home and so on. But what has been happening over the last few months with many companies, from tech companies to large banks and so on, asking people to come back to the office 3, 4, 5 days a week, while still having some exception for remote workers. We need hybrid more and more. And we probably switched from a world where we had like the Pareto principle, right? We had most of the people working from the office. Then there was COVID, most of the people working from home. And then we are moving to this new like 50-50 people working from home and from the office. And we need those solutions that work well for both.
I guess in a way as well, like we've always been hybrid. You've never always been in the same office, especially if you're having a global call with another team. They're using a different whiteboard than what you're using. So
that's very true, but still I have seen most people like those rooms being connected with the same system and so on. Now what we see is I see so many companies like downsizing their real estate and so on. So while there are many offices, there are not always offices from the company you are working for. More and more people are using solutions like Regus or whatever. And I think it comes with bring your own device, connect from anywhere and so on. The office can be so many different places, and it's not always the corporate headquarters. It can be any place in services. So many IT and security professionals, they are working from customer locations. So that's the office. But the office is not the corporate office from the company that is paying them. It's a corporate office from their customers. So being able to work from those environments better and better using the solution is going to be more and more important.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. It's not always about being at home. It's oftentimes about just not being in your native environment, right? You're not always in your office. You might be, yeah, with a customer or at an event, working at a
Mhm.
Starbucks or, you know, what have you. So how do you see JIBB transforming hybrid work for enterprises?
So I guess in two different ways. There is this integration with the Cisco and so on of the world, making it seamless and like additional functions that are in fact missing from those communication solutions. But I also see, and that was very interesting when I discussed that earlier today with Vahid, is the opportunity to tackle a wider market. Being able to use an iPad like this one I'm using right now for talking, or being able to use my phone to record video live or to take a photo and to action that immediately into JIBB. So we don't have to use only those corporate devices, but we can use bring your own device environment that everyone is using everywhere. So because I think when we discussed like just a few months ago, JIBB would be applying to the corporate meeting room. With this new approach, in fact, it's anywhere. It's with you, and that's amazing.
Hmm. Uh, why do you think the challenges of compliance gaps and analog digital barriers are critical for companies to address today?
So today the challenge is like this balance of risk and compliance. So depending on the business, each company has a different risk appetite. If you have trade secret to protect, your risk appetite is lower, and you have a lot of focus on protecting your assets and trade secret. If your business is more focused on commodity, your risk appetite is higher because you have less secret to protect. But there is also more and more the impact of compliance. So one of the biggest risks in many businesses is non-compliance. When you see all those new standards related to privacy all over the world, in the US and Europe and so on, all those standards related to whatever you do, you process credit card. It's like many businesses. You do B2C, you process credit card. You have to be aligned with PCI DSS. Well, guess what? You have to think about it if you start to put credit card number on a document, on your screen or whatever. So you need to manage that. There is this DORA, so operational resiliency that is coming in Europe. In fact, it just took effect a few weeks ago. That is for all financial entities, and the requirement to have so many security controls in place, and all the financial entities from large bank to small banks, insurance company, and so on, have to align with that and demonstrate compliance. The big challenge with all of that is to make sure that each company selects a set of control that is common to most of the risks they want to manage, but also all of the compliance standards they have to align with, because it's in the contract, because it's a law for the country they are dealing with. And what is important for JIBB is to make sure that all of that is integrated into the solution. So the solution can be used in a seamless way. So people who are using it, they don't have to think, oh, can I write that on the dashboard or not? Am I allowed to do that or not? And in fact, based on that, the solution will be able to, in fact, redact it if it's something that should not be in the digital environment, or to do anything that is required to do with the processing of the data, so it's not creating additional risk or driving compliance issues with regulators or whoever is behind those requirements.
Yeah. To expand on that, what do you think of the concept that the whiteboard is a black hole for intellectual property for companies? What I mean by that is, if it gets written in the analog environment, like you say, so many ideas do not make it to digital, and a lot of ideas are lost. Without an application like JIBB that's recording that, how would you quantify the loss that companies are facing without even realizing it, because they're not keeping tabs on their analog environments?
That's extremely difficult to. That's probably extremely difficult, if not impossible, to measure. But I believe from my experience, it's huge. How many times I have seen like something amazing on the whiteboard, not actioned, and like 6 months after that, someone saying, "Oh, didn't we discuss that one day?" It's like I think it's huge. And as for many topics, not as much as the quantity as it is quality and the impact. You might even if you miss one thing, if it's the thing that can like reduce your cost by 10%, it's a big thing.
Yeah. How does JIBB's move? We're currently developing the ability to take all of those saves and then have a data repository where you can then use an AI agent and ask it, hey, I'm working on this problem, and it can go, oh, you were talking about that 6 months ago. Here's the whiteboard session. How do you see that impacting companies moving to the future?
So maybe thinking about an example, recently I have been involved with preparation for board meeting and discussion about how do we want to present that and so on. And those discussions are extremely interactive with a lot of different people from very different backgrounds. You can think about people involved can be from legal, marketing, sales, operation, security, and being able to capture everything during the meeting is difficult. So first, that would help with that. But then being able to translate that into a presentation, it takes a lot of time, resources, and so on. It's such an opportunity to first capture everything, and second, create the outcome that is required. So in fact, I would love to test drive it further to be able to quantify the positive impact on productivity. And my gut feeling so far and my experience so far is it's huge. It's huge. There is like less need to recheck your note, forward that to someone. Oh, can you create the deck for that, and so on. The number of steps you can move from like a process that is like 10 steps to a process that is 2 or 3.
For context, so what we showed you today, sorry, LinkedIn, we're not ready to show you this yet, was the AI agent within the app where you, I guess, streamline your workflow and you can like generate that editable document, right? The next step for us to work on from there will be to have an AI agent that understands your corporate knowledge and can go, okay, so 6 months ago you were talking about this. I recognize that right now you're working on a similar problem. I'm going to bring this up and show it to you. How does I guess, use case like that, how would that impact your corporate workflow?
So that's an amazing use case because I think what you are touching is how can we make correlation between different meetings, sometimes with different people, to make sure that we create outcome like, oh, this meeting has AB, these other meeting are C and D, and they did not think about well, when you add them, the value multiplies. So on one end, it's great, but it's also coming with a challenge, right? The challenge of business need to know: do the person that will have access to that is allowed to know about both what was discussed with A, B, and C and D. So there is this challenge behind that. So I think it's a great idea, and the opportunity to add even more value, because this is the value of AI. AI should be more than automation. It should be insight and additional intelligence. Like, it should help us to see what we missed, to see all of the opportunities. So I think this is perfect. And when implemented properly, it will be extremely, extremely powerful.
In your experience, how important is intellectual property in the age of AI and hybrid work?
So I'm no lawyer, so intellectual property is a topic for lawyers.
Maybe corporate knowledge might be a better way to put it for us.
Yes. I think with AI, it's becoming a real challenge. What I see with big companies is they vet one AI, they work with one AI, like Copilot from Microsoft, you use Office 365, you make sure that everyone can use the different AI function from Copilot and so on. I think the big risk is to allow any type of AI. So in fact, coming back to JIBB, I think what is powerful is to connect JIBB to the existing ecosystem, because what is probably challenging for the company and difficult for enterprise story and difficult for a new supplier like JIBB is to connect. So being able to connect through existing marketplace, Cisco marketplace, Office 365 marketplace, and so on, it's making that much easier, seamless, and it's fixing a lot of the due diligence the company has to do before allowing something new. If you use Office 365 and you have a list of what is allowed through the marketplace, well, you don't need to think about working directly with a new vendor. Everything is done through Microsoft for you. So I think this is something that is really important, and that will have a direct impact on the success of any new solution like this one, being able to smoothly integrate with existing environment, because I think there is a fatigue on adding additional environment into the corporate world. So if I think about this, I like to think about JIBB adding function to existing environment rather than being yet a new one.
Yeah. On that note, how secure is JIBB?
That's a good question. So what I liked when I discussed the solution is security and privacy are taken into account by design, which is really, really important in the startup world. It often focuses on we have to make it work fast and cheap. Here, what I've experienced is really the idea of security by design, and also the understanding that with security, it's not always about making everything as perfect as possible and trying to get the best possible security score, whatever the security standard you use. I think the first thing to do before trying to raise the bar on security controls is to narrow your scope and narrow your risk. Let's say that rather than thinking, well, these all the things I need to do to protect credit card data. Well, if you take the PCI DSS standards, they're like, if you take the breakdown of all the security testing procedure, they are probably like more than 900, if I remember well. Rather than having to put that in your environment because you're likely to have credit card data, well, instead of having 900 controls, what can you do to just prevent credit card data from entering your environment? So you have one control instead of 900. The cost is much better, the efficiency is much better, and so on. That's why I try to focus those conversations on let's work smarter but not harder. Let's work on the scope, then see what we do on that scope, rather than taking security good practices and trying to apply them everywhere, because it's counterproductive. It's killing the business, and this is probably the reason why so many security people are sometimes not perceived well by the business. There is a need to focus on business enablement rather than trying to make everything perfect. And this mindset starts with let's define the scope and manage the risk, and then apply security controls that are relevant to what we do. Coming back to this example, the JIBB solution, by not allowing credit card data or redacting credit card data before they are transferred into any storage, is preventing the risk. So there is no need to have protection measure for our credit card data because it cannot just enter the database.
How common is it, or maybe how big of a deal is it that JIBB doesn't hold any data? As soon as the whiteboard session's over, we send it to you. We do not keep that on our servers.
So that's critical, and using hyperscaler and so on, and using all the controls that are in place to demonstrate that you cannot access the data while in transit and you're not storing the data. I think it's what is going to help most companies to tick the box on the due diligence, because if you don't have access to the data as the supplier, you don't create an additional risk for your customer. And that's what all third-party risk management is all about. Because the more you have access to the data, the longer you store the data and so on, the more that you drive a risk for your own customer. So this is like coming back to what we discussed earlier. This is a very smart privacy by design, like making sure that we have as little as possible for the shortest possible time. And then focusing everything we can on securing that this shortest possible time and smallest possible amount of data, and managing the security for that combination.
Yeah, like we're not using all of these resources to manage this, vault of data from multiple companies. All of our resources are dedicated to that instance, to that being secure as possible, and then it goes into your environment.
Exactly, and that's also, I think, a very smart security and privacy by design principle, because so many companies would have thought, oh, let me gather all the data I can. I will have an amazing data lake, and then I don't know but what I can do today, but one day I'll be able to use it. And let's be honest, it's a model of many, many companies out there that are harvesting data, especially with those all of those new AI services. So being a security professional with my focus on security, I would take more seriously all the companies that have those security and privacy by design principles that are telling me and demonstrating to me that they are not storing my data. It's a good way to quickly build trust and credibility.
What I want to talk about now is, we've talked about bringing your own devices, but someone's bringing their own device and then they take a photo of the board, right? That corporate knowledge is now on their personal cloud, right? Can you discuss the security risks with this?
So I would say it depends. If you take the photo using your personal container, or if you take your photo using your company container on your phone, the photo will be on a different way. So the company policy is extremely likely, if the policy is well written, to tell, well, if you take photo or whatever the input is, you need to do that on the company container. So when I take my phone, I go on the left side, it's everything that is personal. I go on the right side, I see this little lock, and I see that it's all the application I use for my company. So including taking photo. So as long as people align with that and do the right things, that's okay. But it's even better if we think about using the JIBB app, because the JIBB app will be automatically and only on the professional container, so it will enforce that, and there will be no need to this extra step of, oh, you take a photo, then you take that that file, you send it through mail or whatever. If you use it directly through the right app, like I do, for example, when I do my expense report using Concur, it's seamless. I'm not taking photos and sending my photo to the Concur SAP app. I'm just taking the photos received directly from my Concur app, and it's directly into the system, respecting all the requirement for security and so on, because it's end to end within the enterprise environment. So I think this is what this solution is also able to bring to the table. The fact that people are going to be extremely less likely to use the personal part of their device and force everything to go through the enterprise environment.
Yeah, because I feel like, especially yourself being a security executive, you're on top of using the company environment, but there's probably a lot of people that don't use it the way they should.
So that's what part of my job is all about, making sure that they are either not able to, because we need to prove to put some strong technical preventative measure to avoid that, and then in fact there are policy training and so on to tell them what they are not allowed to do and the consequences for them would they decide to knowledgeably do that.
Yeah. How difficult is it to, I guess, get people on board with these security measures? Have you found that there's a lot of resistance, or do people generally get on board pretty quickly?
So it's a combination of two things. First, I think it needs to be education, and positive education, explaining why, how, and so on. I'm not just saying those are the rules. Like, no, this is the way we do things for this reason, that reason, this is a risk we are trying to mitigate, and so on. But also having, again, those security and privacy by design in mind, because human nature is to take the path of least resistance. If you don't cover that in your IT environment, And if you have rules that do not allow something, but the rule is not enforced and automated in the system, and it makes people life easier, they will not care about the written rule. They will just do what is easier for them. So it's about finding this right balance between using rules that can be automated. And it's one, I think, of the challenge with every IT and security department those days is to make sure that we focus on defining rules that can be automated as much as possible. Because we can't expect everyone to be a security professional. If we don't give them the option to make a security mistake, they won't. So the ultimate goal is to make sure that they have everything they need to do their job, that they can be as productive as possible, and there is no there is no technical way of cutting corners.
Yeah, so having a solution like JIBB, especially on Cisco devices, just being in the room, it's taking captures of the whiteboard, it's happening almost passively in the background while you're working. You don't even have to feel the need to take a photo. Things like that. That's the ultimate goal for a secure.
Exactly. You don't even have to think about it. Like we discussed, you put PII on the screen, or you put a credit card number or whatever. The application will immediately, in fact, redact that, remove that, mask it, whatever, and it will not be transferred and further and so on. So that's the right way to do, because people don't have to think about what is allowed or not as much, because they'll be protected from themselves through the power of the application.
I'm going to
change. And while being protected from themselves, their company is protected as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the ultimate goal. I'm going to change the tone a little bit. I'm curious, what do you use a whiteboard for?
So, in fact, just yesterday I had a session with a few of my direct reports from Texas. So we had a whiteboarding section. That was a combination of things. The first thing we did is we all discussed what we wanted to be on the agenda exactly. So I used the left part of the whiteboard with the agenda. In each item on the agenda, we were like, oh, okay, done, next, and so on. So we were using that to track. That's also something that we can use to have a summary of the meeting. What did we do? Outcome next to each item in the agenda. Action, is that closed or not? And then we were using the other part of the whiteboard to explain a lot. So like when we discussed about a process and we were discussing about how it works, what's the impact and so on, each contributor had a different view. So each person was like taking the pen and adding something and so on. And at the end, what we did is sadly take a picture of it to work on it, to make sure that we have all the same understanding. Some of the corporate enterprise environment are so complex that no one has the full view. So the whiteboard is the opportunity to combine everything. And what we did with that, because one of my challenges, I'm dealing with a team of people that have been, some of them with the company for 20 or 30 years, and some of them joining the company in the last 2 years. So the level of institutional knowledge is extremely different, and we have a need to document everything. And for this institutional knowledge, in fact, those brainstorming sessions using the whiteboard is the opportunity to do something with a small group that once transformed into documentation, education, and so on, can be used for a wider group. So for the new people I'm going to hire in the next few months, 3 years, and so on, I don't need to have this whiteboard session with everyone every time to explain everything. They will see the recap, the PowerPoint, or whatever the format is, and they can benefit from that.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of, you've got these people that have a lot of experience, you've got these people not so much experience. Do you find the whiteboard is this equalizer for people with different backgrounds, and they can go on there and really exchange knowledge and experience?
It's exactly this. The whiteboard is the opportunity for every gray area to become not so gray anymore. Because the other thing is, I noticed in most companies, when there are friction, it's often like not anyone being like malicious or things like that. It's like people don't understand each other, or even worse, they believe that they understand exactly what's going on, but the two people have a very different understanding. So as they whiteboard, they're like, oh, okay, this is what you thought, this is what I think, and they can adjust and so on. So it's a great opportunity to clarify things, not only right now, but also going forward. I think we were discussing earlier in the conversation of what is lost when we do those whiteboarding sessions. Well, instead of having something that creates value right now, we can keep that incremental value going forward as we digitalize that. The whiteboard session has value by itself because everyone leaving the room is leaving with this additional knowledge. But if we can make that additional knowledge available to a much bigger group, it's exactly what we want. It's like the productivity of this meeting is demultiplied.
I mean, why a whiteboard? We've got all of these, new technologies now. We've got iPads, we've got laptops, we've even got digital boards. Why do you think the whiteboard is still persisting right now?
So far, I have never seen anything that goes faster for people to adopt. Anyone know how to use it? It's fast. You just need a few pens and so on. It's like you can erase and so on. I have never seen like a digital whiteboard that was as convenient and easy to use as the old school one. Even I've seen in many cases, there was, I think it's Google that creates this digital whiteboard TV that on paper, it looked like the best idea in the world. Well, the few I have seen, people remove them after a year.
Yeah, that's the Jamboard. I'm pretty sure the Jamboard's discontinued now, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Because I mean, often like from investors and stuff, the first thing sometimes that some people are like, oh, people still use whiteboards. It's like, yeah, they do. They're ubiquitous with meeting rooms. To go a bit further,
and there is more. Sorry to interrupt. There is more than whiteboard. I see more and more. I see people like using post-it, putting stuff on the wall, organizing things, and so on. So one day, it was like probably a year or two ago, I was in a room with no whiteboard. People used a big pile of post-it and did whiteboard using post-it on the wall because the whiteboard was missing and people were frustrated and were not able to interact the way they wanted.
Wow. What do you think it is about? Do you think that there's people are yearning for more analog tools to be able to use? I think people are getting sick of just constantly being in digital and
no, I think most people, unless they think hard about it, most people don't care. It's always against this human nature or going to the path of least resistance. I feel right now, if you want to draw something, the path of least resistance is a whiteboard until someone creates something better. This Jamboard from Google was a great idea, but obviously it's not good enough to replace the whiteboard. So maybe the whiteboard will be disrupted in 3 months, 3 years, or 30 years. But so far, it's still the way to go from what I experienced. What we need is to connect this whiteboard to the rest of the environment. So in fact, the whiteboard, I think JIBB is digitalizing the whiteboard. So the whiteboard is no longer analog.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a connector. You can still stay in your analog environment, and then you can take that to the digital. Like for us, it's about being able to stand up, move around. There's this certain like tactile feeling that you get pressing a marker on a board. There's a smell to it where, in other environments you don't really get that, right?
Oh, yes. There is also the body language when someone had removed something for the whiteboard and so on. Communication, it's not just speech or what is written. It's the way you do that. It's probably because of my Italian last name. You see, I'm using my hands a lot. But there is a meaning with that. When people are whiteboarding, in fact, their body language also has some meaning, right?
What do you think is important about JIBB for corporate leaders to understand? Like, what, from an education standpoint, what is an aspect or the aspects of JIBB that you think might not be immediately obvious to people?
So I would probably recap a lot of this thing we discussed. The fact that it's obviously not only about productivity. It's about like not missing opportunity. We discussed about this AI correlation between meetings that were not initially connected that could be and could drive a better idea, and being aware that is not adding additional risk. Sorry, that's my bias because of my background. But in fact, every time I'm thinking about a new tool in my environment, I'm thinking, oh, what are going to be the additional risk or the additional compliance challenges? What are the costs and so on and so on? So combining those things, I think is a key message. First, it's going to improve what I would call basic productivity. Second, it will give you options that you don't even have today. So it will generate incremental value, not just productivity on what you are doing. And third, in fact, it will do all of that without creating significant additional burden for the organization regarding risk and compliance.
How would you describe JIBB's value?
So, in a sentence, I would say that JIBB's value is to close the gap between the digital and the analog world, probably in the best way I have seen so far, and doing that in the complex hybrid environment we have today with work from home, work from office, work from anywhere, and using those different type of device from a personal with a corporate container to full enterprise devices. So this combination of things is, I think, quite unique and efficient.
What are the three biggest things that JIBB are addressing in digital transformation today?
So for me, the three biggest takeaway is first, improving productivity as we know it. So those meetings with by whiteboarding session and so on, making those meetings more efficient by making sure that in fact the memos, the results, the outcomes, the deliverable of the meeting are produced as quickly as possible without anything lost in translation. So that's a great thing. The second thing that I think is one of the value multiplier is this opportunity to use AI to do correlation between meetings, making sure that in fact two topics that are discussed in different meetings with some of people being the same, some people being different, we can add the analysis or tell people, oh, have you thought about that? Is that something missing or not? This is creating like incremental value, not just improving productivity. And the third one is this security and compliance by design, making sure all of that is done in a way that is just business enablement and nothing slowing down the business because it's not creating additional risk, because it's not additional challenges regarding compliance and regulatory requirements. So it's every solution those days, they are accelerating the business, but at a cost. And they are accelerating the business by one factor and slowing down the business by another. Here, I think that the balance is great because the acceleration is significant and the slowdown effect is minimal to none.
Thanks so much for your time today, Rodolphe. Really appreciate it. It's been fantastic chatting with you. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Connor, for having me. And could not be more excited about working with the team, the JIBB team. It's a great experience so far.
Okay, brilliant. All right, see you, Rodolphe.
Thank you. Bye.